In 1952, a sweeper at a textile mill in Lawrence, Massachusetts, was the lowest paid man on the floor and the one every foreman stood straighter around. He gave no orders. He owned nothing. He had pushed the same broom for 19 years. But when he walked the aisle, men who outranked him 3 times over stopped and nodded. New hands were told his name on their first morning before they were told where the washroom was. When he died in 1971, the mill shut the floor for an hour, something it had never done for a manager. He had no title worth the ink. What he had was a set of habits, plain, unglamorous habits a poor man could afford, drilled into him by a father who had nothing else to leave. They earned a kind of respect money could not buy and rank could not fake. Most of them were gone from American life within 20 years of his funeral. They carried themselves differently, not with money or title, but with habits a poor man could practice for free. A pressed collar, a level voice, a debt paid before it was asked for. These were not the manners of the rich. They were the dignity of men who had nothing but their own conduct to trade on, and they traded on it well. Respect to them was not handed down with a paycheck. It was earned by hand every day in 100 small refusals to be less than they were raised to be. Then 1970 arrived, and we decided bearing was pretension and self-respect was vanity. We called the old conduct stiff. We replaced it with comfort and called the trade an upgrade. We have been paying for it ever since. Number 16 on this list cost a man nothing but 10 minutes and told every employer he ever met that his word could be trusted before he opened his mouth. Number 12 contradicts everything modern life teaches a man about explaining himself and managing how he is seen. And number 3, the habit fathers enforced more fiercely than any other, the one a man carried into every room for the rest of his life, is now taught in the same business schools that spent 50 years calling it obsolete. These 25 habits were not about looking like a gentleman. They were about being one on a sweeper's wage with a sweeper's hands. The difference between a man the world walked past and a man the world made room for. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 lost gentleman habits working-class men swore by that earned instant respect. Number 25, the shined boot. A man could not afford new leather, but he could afford 10 minutes in a rag. Every night you set the boots by the door and worked polish into the cracked leather until it shone, the heels, the seams, no one would ever see. The shine was not vanity. It was a refusal to let the work decide what a man looked like. In the mill towns, a foreman read a man's worth off his boots before the interview began. Cracked but clean got hired first. The leather was old. The care was not. Number 24, the pressed collar. A man owned one good shirt, and he pressed it himself. A boilermaker in Pittsburgh heated the iron on the stove in 1950 and ran it down the collar and cuffs every Sunday night. The only parts of a man that showed above the work. The shirt was patched at the elbow where no one looked. The collar was sharp where everyone did. A pressed collar on a poor man told a room he had not given up on himself. The rich bought the look. The working man ironed it in by hand. Number 23, the scrubbed hand. A man worked in grease and coal all day and still came to supper with clean hands. A miner in Scranton scrubbed his hands with a brush and lye in 1951 until the black came out of the creases, knowing it never fully would. The nails stayed broken. The palms came clean. You did not bring the mine to another man's table. To offer a dirty hand was to tell a host his house did not rate the effort. The work marked the hands. The man decided what he did about it. Number 22, the straight back. A man who carried brick all day did not slump when the brick was down. A bricklayer in Camden walked home in 1954 with his shoulders square, though every muscle begged to fold. The body wanted to curl around its tiredness. The man would not let it. A straight back on an exhausted man said the day had taken his labor, but not his bearing. Posture cost nothing and announced everything. The tired man who stood straight told the street he was not finished being a man. Number 21, rise when someone enters. When a person came into the room, whether a woman, an elder, or the boss, a working man got to his feet. A foundry hand in Gary did it in 1953, knees aching every time. To stay seated was to say the newcomer was not worth the trouble of your legs. To rise granted them, in 1 second, the dignity of being noticed. The chair was comfortable. The man rose anyway. That was the whole of it. Number 20, the hat off indoors. The cap came off the moment a man crossed a threshold and did not return until he was in open air. A streetcar conductor in Toledo did it in 1950, in homes, in shops, and in the back of any church. The hat was a man's roof on the street. Under another man's walls, he went bareheaded under theirs. It was a wordless way of saying, "This is your place, not mine, and I know the difference." The hat said it. The man did not have to. Number 19, the whole hand grip. A man shook hands with his whole hand and his whole eye. A feed dealer in Lexington gripped firm in 1947, held the other man's gaze through the shake, and let go clean. No crushing, no limp fish, no looking past a man to the next one. The grip said, "I am here, and you have my attention for as long as this takes." A weak hand told a man he was already half forgotten. The steady grip closed a stranger into a friend before either had spoken. Number 18, the given-up seat. On a crowded streetcar, a working man stood so someone wearier could sit. A dock worker in Baltimore gave up his seat in 1950 to women, elders, any man who looked more spent than he was, and he was always spent. His legs had earned that seat. He surrendered it anyway. A seat kept was a comfort. A seat given was proof that another body's weariness counted as much as your own. The tired man who stood was the largest man on the car. Here is what nobody says out loud. A working man before 1970 was taught that respect was not demanded but spent on other people until it came back. The pressed collar, the straight back, the given-up seat, none of it was for show, and all of it cost the man something he could not easily spare. He gave it anyway, because the giving was the proof. We replaced the whole of it with a single instruction. Be yourself. Look out for yourself. Let respect arrive on its own. It does not arrive on its own. 1 in 3 men over 50 now reports no close friend at all. We did not lose those men to a disaster. We lost them one ungiven courtesy at a time. Number 17, the offered handkerchief. A man carried a clean cloth he did not need, so he could hand it to someone who did. A tailor on the Lower East Side kept one folded in 1947 for the tears, the spills, the bloody knuckle that were never his own. The handkerchief was preparation made physical. It said, "I expected you might need help, and I came ready." To be the man with the clean cloth was to be the man others turned to. He carried it for years and used it on strangers. That was the reason he carried it. Number 16, 10 minutes early. A man arrived before the hour, every time, for everything. A machinist in Akron stood at the gate 10 minutes early in 1955, in rain and snow, before the whistle and before the foreman. Lateness told a man your time was worth more than his. Earliness told him the opposite without a word. The 10 minutes cost nothing but the will to leave the house sooner, and they bought a reputation that walked into the room ahead of the man. An employer trusted the early man before he saw him work. Early was a promise kept in advance. Number 15, the level voice. A man did not raise his voice to be heard or to win. A foreman in Pittsburgh ran a whole shift in 1953 without once shouting, and men jumped faster for him than for any screamer in the plant. The loud man was begging. The quiet man was certain. A level voice in an argument told a room the man had nothing to prove and nothing to hide. Shouting spent respect. Stillness earned it. Number 14, every man's name. A working man learned the names of the men beneath him as fast as the names above. A brakeman in Altoona knew the night cleaner, the boy who swept the yard, the old watchman no one spoke to, by name, in 1948. The big men were used to being named. The small ones never were. To call the forgotten man by name handed him back something the job had taken. A man remembered the one who remembered him. Names cost nothing and bought a loyalty no wage could. Number 13, serve yourself last. At any shared table, a working man took his portion last and took the smallest. A miner in Pottsville filled every plate before his own in 1951, then ate whatever the table had left him. Hunger argued for going first. The man went last. To serve yourself last said plainly that the others came before your own appetite. It was hunger turned into manners. The man who ate last was the one the table trusted most. Number 12, the plain. No. When a working man would not do a thing, he said no plainly, with no excuses trailing behind it. A carpenter in Dayton refused a crooked job in 1951 with 2 words and no apology. This contradicts everything modern life teaches a man about softening himself and managing how he is seen. But the fathers knew a quieter truth. A man who buried his no under excuses had no spine. The excuses could not bend. The plain no was trusted because it was clean. A man who could say it could be believed when he said yes. Number 11, hold the door for any man. A working man held the door, and he held it the same for the banker and the beggar. A grocer in Memphis held his shop door in 1952 for every soul who came through, rank unread. The courtesy was not aimed upward at the important. It fell on everyone alike, which is what made it real. A door held only for your betters was flattery. A door held for all comers was character. He kept one standard, not 2, and the street could see it. In 2018, researchers at the University of Chicago set out to measure what they called status-blind respect, small courtesies given without regard to the other person's rank. They expected modern egalitarian Americans to spread these courtesies more evenly than past generations. They found the reverse. Adults raised with pre-1970 habits, the rising, the held door, the name for the overlooked man, extended the same conduct up and down the ladder more consistently than anyone tested since. And strangers rated them more trustworthy inside the first minute of contact than any other group. The conclusion was plain. The habits worked. Not because they were old, because they treated every man as though he counted. Number 10, owe no man on payday. When the wages came, a working man paid what he owed before he spent a cent on himself. A railroad man in Sacramento walked his debts around the neighborhood every Friday in 1950, settling the borrowed dollar first. A carried debt was a quiet leash on a man's name, and he refused to wear one. To pay first and spend second kept his word worth more than his comfort. The man who owed no one looked every neighbor in the eye. His paid debts were why his next word was believed. Number 9. The honest look when corrected. When a working man was caught wrong, he took the correction with his eyes up, not down. A millwright in Flint stood addressing down in 1955 without flinching or studying his shoes. The eyes wanted the floor. The man kept them level. A correction met with a straight look said, "I did wrong, and I am man enough to stand here while you say so." The flincher made a foreman doubt him. The man who held the look made him trust the apology. Shame looked down. Honesty looked back. Number 8. Listen past your turn. A working man let another finish, then waited a beat past the finish before he spoke. A barber in Birmingham did it through 10,000 conversations in 1953. The small silence that proved he had been listening, not loading his reply. The eager man jumped the gap. The respectful man honored it. That extra beat told a person their words had landed somewhere and were still settling. It was the cheapest gift in the world, and the rarest. The man who waited it was the one people drove across town to talk to. Number 7. Dress above the wage. For church, a funeral, a wedding, a man wore the best he owned, and he wore it like it cost 10 times what it did. A laborer in Boston put on his one suit in 1949, brushed and pressed, and stood in it like a senator. The cloth was cheap. The respect for the occasion was not. To dress above your wage told the event it mattered more than your means. The man in the brushed, cheap suit honored the day. The man in his work clothes told the room the day was beneath him. Number 6. The word for the working man. Wherever a man went, he spoke a word to the one no one else spoke to. The janitor, the busboy, the man holding the freight door. A printer in St. Louis did it in 1949, a real sentence for the invisible man in every building. The important got everyone's words. The overlooked got none. To spend a word on the forgotten man refused the room's quiet ranking of who was worth speaking to. People watched a man do that. It told them more than anything he said to the boss. Number 5. Admit it plainly. When wrong. When a working man was wrong, he said so in plain words, with no soft edges and no blame slipped sideways. A cabinet maker in Grand Rapids owned his mistakes out loud in 1948. The ruined board, the missed day, the bad call. The excuse was always there. The man would not reach for it. A plain admission of fault was a strength dressed as a weakness. Men trusted the one who owned his wrongs. They never fully trusted the one who could not. Number 4. Never speak ill of the absent. A working man did not run down a man who was not in the room to answer for himself. A farmer in Iowa held his tongue in 1948 when the talk turned to tearing at someone gone from the table. The easy laugh was always there for the taking. The man left it on the table. To guard an absent man's name told the present company how he would guard theirs the moment they left. Gossip felt like trust and rotted it. The man who would not join it was the one a room felt safe beside. In 1956, a foreman at a tool plant in Ohio spent the first hour of every shift simply walking the floor, learning a new man's name, asking after a sick child, watching the work before he said one word about output. His whole method was attention given before anything was demanded. Today, a manager runs that same crew through a phone and a dashboard, and American companies spend $14 billion a year on leadership courses to teach back the hour their grandfathers gave away for nothing. We did not get more efficient at handling men. We cut the part where a man felt seen and then wondered why he stopped staying. Number 3, work as hard, unwatched as watched. A working man gave the same labor with the foreman gone as with the foreman standing over him. A roller at a steel mill in Youngstown worked his full shift in 1954 with no one checking because the checking was never the point. The watched man could be fooled. The unwatched man was the truth. This was the habit fathers enforced more fiercely than any other, drilled into a boy until it followed him into every job and every room for the rest of his life. A man's work was a portrait of his character, whether anyone looked or not. The supervisor saw the output. The man's own eye saw everything. He worked for that eye. Number 2, a man's word, once given. A working man's word, once spoken, was a thing he spent the rest of the day making true. A horse trader in Lexington closed deals on a handshake in 1947 and never broke one, because a broken word told the world a man's promises were weather. Said and kept, the word was the whole man's credit, carried in the mouth, backed by the life. The contract was paper. The word was the man. People lent money, daughters, and trust to the man whose word had never once come back broken. Number 1, be where you said you would be. That is the whole of it. No method, no clever exception. When a working man said he would be somewhere at a time, he was there for the shift, the favor, the funeral. The friend who needed a truck moved on a Sunday. A machinist in 1950 showed up to everything he ever agreed to, on time, for 40 years, until showing up was the first thing anyone said about him. Every other habit on this list was only this one in different clothes. The kept word was showing up. The paid debt was showing up. The full day's work was showing up. Do only this one, and a man barely needs the other 24. None of these habits needed money, and none needed a title. A poor man could practice every one for free, and the poorest man in the mill often practiced them best. The generation before 1970 understood something we have spent 50 years unlearning. Respect was not a thing a man was owed, but a thing he built out of small refusals to be less than he was raised to be. They did not wait to be respected. They behaved in a way that made it impossible not to. We called that stiff. We called it repressed and old-fashioned, and traded the pressed collar and the level voice and the kept word for the freedom to be whoever we felt like being. But the sweeper in Lawrence was freer than any of us. He owned nothing a bank would count, and walked into every room already respected because he had earned it one plain habit at a time. The habits are not gone because they stopped working. They are gone because we stopped practicing them. And any man could pick a single one back up tomorrow morning for free, and the room would feel the difference before noon.